Our next question comes from Orion, who asks, is "Where is the butter at" a grammatically correct sentence? Orion, this is a wonderful question. And it is, in fact, to answer it, we get to explore more about English and the history of English than you might have been expecting. So let's actually take a look at this sentence together. Bird, you should be able to see this here. And here is our sentence. Where is the butter at? This sentence, if you say it out loud, if you listen to it, you may notice that it has, it feels informal. It feels what Marie introduces right at the beginning of the basic cozy grammar course, colloquial, out loud. It's not something you might hear being spoken on a television or on a stage or in a classroom, but you might hear it, in the context of a home. Where is the butter at? I'm looking for the butter. Now, it is also important to remember that with any language, and particularly with English, there are times in which colloquial language is wonderful and in fact correct for that context. And then there are times where we want to speak more formally, where we want to speak according to the standards of standard written English, the kind of English we might see published in a professionally edited book. In that case, this sentence, "Where is the butter at?" is in fact not considered grammatically correct, because this word "at" is actually redundant. We could simply say, "Where is the butter?" and the meaning is conveyed fully and clearly. Where is the butter? No problem. And in fact, this is not merely a rule that we might follow in language, but it is a rule in the service of concision, of saying what we want to say as efficiently and clearly and cleanly as possible. Because in written language and in more formal contexts, that's how we get our message across most succinctly and most powerfully. So in the context of more formal language, we would want to say, "Where is the butter?" Now let me close this screen so I can look at all of you again. But there is another aspect to this question that makes it even more interesting, because during about the 1960s, 1970s, a new phrase came into the English language, particularly in North America. And it was the phrase, "That's where it's at," or "This is where it's at." And this phrase, again, comes from the very colloquial, on the ground kind of language. And people know it means, that something important is happening there. This is where it's at. This is where the magic is happening. This is where something exciting is happening. And because this phrase has come into the language, "That's where it's at," then other phrases in the language may be affected by that phrase. So somebody might say, "Where's the butter at?" having heard the phrase, "That's where it's at." And all of this is to help illustrate the way that language is constantly changing over time. And not just words, but whole phrases, idioms, enter into a language. And because language is like an ecosystem, you bring in one phrase and that phrase may start to affect others around it. And so we can see in just a simple question like this, in a simple matter like this, a glimpse into the different layers of language, formal on the one hand and colloquial on the other, and also the way that language changes over time and phrases influence other phrases. And so I really commend you for asking this question about "Where's the butter at?" because it helps us to enter into these different layers. And the more clarity we have about these layers and about the history of our language, the more clearly we can express our own thoughts in the ways that make the most sense for whatever context we may be speaking in and to. So I hope that answers your question, Orion. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to follow up.